we do not see trauma as a disorder. It's neurological. It gets stuck in the amygdala where that fight, flight, freeze emotional response is. And with our process, what we're doing is getting the brain, because the brain is the brain is just smart. It's remarkable in how smart it is. I think so many times we take it for granted, but basically, once you go through the process and you get the REM sleep that you need, then it moves over. So the content never goes away. You can't get rid of the content, but what we do is make it where you're neutral. When you think about the content, there's no physical, emotional reaction because it's become neutral and your brain has processed that trauma.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. My today guest embodies everything this podcast stands for: reinvention, healing, and the courage to turn pain into purpose. Dr. Pamela Arnell leads 220, an organization devoted to helping veterans and first responders healed from emotional trauma and reclaim their lives. Pamela implemented the 220 Ambassador Program, Heroes Untold Stories program, to further expand the mission of 220, and we will talk about that. Pam also serves on the board of A Right to Heal with Lisa Regina, and if you recall, we shared her story on a podcast just recently. Pamela spent years in service as a first responder herself, a community leader, and an advocate for untold stories. When we first met, we discovered a bond that instantly connected us. We are both widows, and that's the member of a club no one ever wants to join, yet club that shapes you in a way that only another member understands. She's also a proud mom, mother-in-law, grandmother to 3 beautiful grandkids, and someone whose heart for helping others is truly her compass. Please help me welcome Dr. Pamela Arnell.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on today.
Pam, how are you and where are you calling from?
I am doing well. I live in Tennessee, and so right now, the weather is pretty nice. It's not extremely cold, which I don't like cold weather, but we are going to start getting some storms in the next few days, and um, I'm doing well, doing well.
Yeah, we're recording this right before holiday season, so everything is getting ready for that time of the year, which we both know it's not so easy when you lost the lifelong partner that you were sharing those moments with. And I don't want us to start on a sad note.
Right.
But I was really curious to learn about you because first of all, I never heard of that organization before we met, and when I look at it, I'm fascinated what you guys do because I was always feeling that there's more that needs to be done. But I would love to meet you first as a person, as a human being. What did you want to be when you grow up? How did you end up in service, in first responders, as a firefighter? All these things are incredible to me. So please share because that's not typical girls' roles that we may
Right.
see ourselves in, but what inspired you?
So my dad, so I grew up in the Blue family. My dad was in law enforcement, and he ended up being a magistrate for many years up until he passed away. But I knew that as a child, I always knew I wanted to ameliorate a lot after my dad. He was
Mm.
like my hero. I remember him coming home he would be on a break when he was patrolling, and he would come home. He'd bring the his partner with him, and I promise you, if you've never watched oh, what is that show? Oh, I can't think of it. Ah, it had Andy Griffith. That show,
Okay.
Andy Griffith, yes. Barney Fife. I swear that was my dad's partner. I remember looking at him, and I remember one day we were watching TV, and I said, "Look, Daddy, there's your partner." He reminded me a lot of Barney Fife, and so, anyways, I just knew that I wanted to be in the serving and protecting role. I didn't know exactly how, but I did want to be in law enforcement. Uh,
Mm,
Back in those days, they actually had a height requirement, and
yeah.
my little 5 foot and a half an inch self was not tall enough, according to the statute.
Oh,
Yeah, back then they expected you to have a lot higher height, and I said, "Well, I can get in places none of you can." So,
that's true. That's very smart. Yeah.
but it didn't change. So,
Oh.
anyways, so I was not able to go into law enforcement, but one of the things that I did is I knew that it still was within my purpose to serve others. And so I went into the clinical world. I went into
Mm,
counseling. And then it's funny, kind of things, I love how things come back full circle. So
yeah.
I joined the Giles County Fire and Rescue in 2008. I'm an auxiliary member now, but I joined in 2008 after we had a really bad tornado that went through Giles County, and it hurt my heart. So I took a lot of food. I went to McDonald's, got a whole bunch of sandwiches to take to
Mm.
the first responders. And it was at that point, Bruce, who, I ended up meeting, said, "Hey, come on, you can go riding with me." And by the time I left, he said, "Do you want to join?" And I said, "Yes." And that's how I got connected to Giles County Fire Rescue.
Hmm.
Um, but the really neat thing is eventually they did lift that height requirement.
What
So
was the height requirement?
I have no idea, but they told me I was not tall enough.
How tall are you?
I'm 5 foot and a half an inch.
Ooh, yeah, you're probably a little short. Yes.
But I can get in places nobody else can, like those
That's excellent
protesters.
point. Yeah.
They didn't help.
Mm.
Back then I even said, I could run in some stiletto shoes. I can't do that today, but I said I could wear some stiletto shoes. That'll make me taller. I was
Yeah.
trying all
Yeah.
kinds of things. But the sheriff's department ended up they decided to do a reserve program, and I was a reserve deputy for 5 years
Hmm.
in the county. And I did that up until I became the youth service officer. And the youth service officer is when there's a matter that goes before the court, before the juvenile court judge, with children, be it they break the law or abuse, neglect,
Hmm.
whatever, that would go to the juvenile court, and then my boss was the judge. So in doing that, I could not be a reserve deputy and being the YSO when I had
Um,
to step out of that role. But I was able to do the full circle. I at least was able to, be in law enforcement, um, and I loved it.
your whole
So
life. And
yes, yes.
and your husband was also in service.
He was. He was a combat veteran. He was in Desert Storm. He and I met actually right after he got back from his deployment from Desert Storm.
Oh, when was that?
So we actually met in 99, and he had been back maybe 2, 3 years,
Mm.
um, from, yeah, about three years, I think, by the time I had met him.
Oh, yeah, that's not an easy, not an easy role
No,
to fill as well. Yeah. So
right.
you both were really in quite um, stressful kind of world for on both sides, because you, on one hand, you're trying to help people heal, and he's he's occurring trauma and being exposed to things that we don't want to be exposed to. So unfortunately, he paid the price for that too, right?
Right. Right. And when his time was up in the Army, he rode over to the National Guard. So he was stationed at Joint Force Headquarters in Nashville,
Mm. Yeah.
and he was in the National Guard, the Tennessee National Guard, for 19 years, where he was at Joint Force Headquarters.
So did you have to move a lot, like the usual army families have to?
No, because so when I met him, it was after he had already rolled out of the Army, when he had gotten through with his deployment and finished his time. And then that's when we met. So with the National Guard, they would have drill once a month, and then each year they would do training. They would do
Mhm.
like 2 week trainings in the summer. Now, during the summer, during that 2 week time, they were, doing training at different locations, but it wasn't, he wasn't gone more than 2 weeks at a time.
Good. Yeah. So you were still doing your clinical work before you were introduced to the 220?
So, well, I was doing the clinical stuff, but prior to being connected to 220, that's when I was the youth service officer, and that was where it was with the juvenile court. And then how I got connected to 220 was through my fire chief, who's now retired. I had not heard of 220, but he asked that I would go through the training. And I was adamant at first. I said, no, I got enough going on. Like, I'm busy. Um, but so, long story short, I did go through the training, and that was in 2021. And, I had 3 calls at the fire department and 2 calls at the sheriff's department that was problematic. And so that was over a span of time, and part of the training, you actually have to go through the process. And I could feel an immediate shift. So we do not see trauma as a disorder. It's neurological. It gets stuck in the amygdala where that fight, flight, freeze emotional response is. And with our process, what we're doing is getting the brain, because the brain is the brain is just smart. It's remarkable in how smart it is. I think so many times we take it for granted, but basically, once you go through the process and you get the REM sleep that you need, then it moves over. So the content never goes away. You can't get rid of the content, but what we do is make it where you're neutral. When you think about the content, there's no physical, emotional reaction because it's become neutral and your brain has processed that trauma.
Yeah.
The reason it gets stuck is because you were not able to process that trauma.
I would definitely want to go deeper into how, because I love that your methods that you are using in the programs with veterans are non-invasive, non-clinical, peer-to-peer, holistic intervention, and it's really different than going through therapy and retell the story over and over and cement it in your mind. That's what with the therapy sometimes happens. But I don't want to forget to ask you, because I actually looked it up, and I love what is the meaning of the 220? Why is it called this way?
So 220, the data says there's 22 veterans that die a day by suicide. Realistically, that number is going to be higher. But when 220 was spoken into existence, April will be 8 years ago. The heart of the mission is taking that 22 and making it zero, where we just are irrelevant. And I'm looking for another job.
Yeah, you said 22 a day, right?
Data says 22 a day, but the data is not accurate. And that was the number 8 years ago. So
Mm.
if with what's going on and the numbers not really changing, it's going to end up being that the VA really and the government really needs to look at why is it not working.
Yeah.
So many times, you have to look at veterans that do go to the VA for the mental health piece. A lot of them stop. And
Yeah.
then on the flip side of that, you've got veterans who refuse to go to the VA because they don't want to talk about the content. They don't
Mm.
want to tell that story.
Right. Yeah.
And so getting, leadership in the VA, getting leadership in the government, top tier levels to look at being, in the mindset of let's make a change, because what's been going on for years and years and years and years has not changed.
That's not
And
help
they,
too. Yeah.
right. And so how are we really providing a service to our armed forces? And it's not just veterans, that's active duty as well.
Yeah.
You know, but how are we providing the service and the resources that they genuinely deserve, when in reality they're not, because they're not going to go, they don't want to talk about the content, and they're not going to talk about that content. Don't
And
talk
many
about
of them
content.
also don't want to be just medicated to the roof. And it's
True.
unfortunately, I think what's happening, that sometimes the official treatment is to throw the pill at it and hope for best, and it's not working well.
It's not
Uh,
working well.
yeah,
It's
that's why I was really moved with the mission, because we thank God we live in a country that has so many organizations that are helping veterans, helping first responders, whether with housing or with, getting them back on their feet, because that should be given, but it's not.
right.
But you are doing little something different, because you're really helping to through healing process of the trauma that they occur, and all these emotions and everything. And it's been your field, you knew how to do that, and you personally, but you also have a collective of providers that are assisting you, of course. And so tell me a little bit how that works when somebody decides to reach out to you, and let's say they have PTSD, or they're dealing with something unresolved from the war, and they didn't see solution yet.
So one of the biggest ways that we get mission clients is word of mouth. So after our mission clients have gone through it and they're talking to other veterans and other first responders, and they'll say, just call Pam, call 220, call and talk to Pam. The other is, doing podcast articles. I've been in articles. The other is going to be when they Google trauma, whatever characters that they're putting in, and it brings up 220, they'll go through the website, so they can actually contact us through the website.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't believe in a waiting list, so the 800 number that's on the website, it actually comes to my phone. So when they're typically, if they're in crisis and they find the 800 number and it comes to me, they need a little bit more of that clinical piece,
Yeah.
compared to, one of my peer coaches. And so what I do is 24/7, when that phone rings, I'm going to take that call. If I'm in a meeting, let's say I'm in a meeting, we're doing a podcast, as soon as we get done, I'm checking the phone, and I'm calling them back. And it's kind of funny because my pastor said, even on Sundays, so my pastor was joking one day, and he said, I really must be stepping on your toes, because you get up and you walk out. And he said, but you have your phone. And I said, look, Pastor, when my phone rings, because when someone calls in, it's going to show the 800 number. So it's not like, even though it's coming on my personal phone, I know that it's an 800 number.
Right.
And I said, that's probably a veteran or first responder in crisis, and I'm taking that call. And he said, oh, so I can't tell everybody that was, stepping on your toes. I said, you can tell them whatever you want to tell them. I said, but when my
Yeah.
phone rings, I'm going to get up and walk out, and I'm going to take that call.
That's
And that's
incredible.
happened. That has happened. Not a whole lot, but it has happened on Sundays. And one, they're absolutely surprised somebody answered the phone. Two, they're surprised it's not a bot or an AI
Yeah.
generated
Yeah. Yeah.
companion. It's actually a real person. And so it's, we have to, if we say we're going to be there for our armed forces and our first responders, we need to be there. Not
Yeah.
just when we want to, not just when we feel up to it. It's a dedication, it's a commitment, and that's just what I do.
That's incredible, because that's very, very unusual in today's world, and we are all so fed up with all these automated, services, so-called services where you get to nowhere. And if somebody is in crisis, God forbid, or frustrated, and get that, it just blows everything out of proportion. So you're doing a huge service. That's commendable. But my question was more like when they reach out, what can you do for them? How does that process look like? Um, what is important to mention to me? Um, uh, it's not going to cost them a dime.
Right.
You are devoted to provide these services for free for veterans and people who deserve it and who need it. And so obviously my whole intention is to tell people about you because you need support, you need money, you need fundraising money to be able to provide these services. But what you just said, to be there 24/7, that's some kind of devotion and commitment. That's incredible. So if anybody reaches out and let's say you have the first conversation, what can they expect? What can be done for them?
So, kind of going back to what I was saying, you can actually go to the website. So, our mission clients are going to be armed forces, any branch, anytime served, deployed or not, first responders that are law enforcement, fire, 911 dispatchers, EMT paramedics, and corrections, Gold Star and Green Star families are at no cost. So let's say you go to the website. Once you go to the website where it's got contact us, you fill that information. It automatically comes to me and it automatically comes to Trisha. Trisha is my amazing social worker. And so what happens is once we get that, then we reach out to you. We schedule a time that works around your schedule because if they're working, we don't want to interfere with their work. So if they say, I get off at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Okay, well, when you get done, text me because we're going to reach out to them. Text me so we can get your pre-assessment. We get the pre-assessment done. It's a trauma screen, depression screen, and an anxiety screen. As soon as we do that, then we are connecting you with your peer coach. So we have trained over 350 peer coaches across the U.S. When we connect you with your peer coach, you and your coach set up a time that works for you. So it doesn't interfere with work. Um, you remain at home. Everything's done fully remote.
Mhm.
The average number of sessions is between 2 and 4. So,
Mhm.
say some need 3 sessions, some need 2 sessions, some may need 4 sessions. It just depends. But you and your coach are going to actually set those schedules to work around your work time. Yes,
That
that does
speak
include.
volume about how effective you are.
Well, and that does include nights and weekends. Especially that just recently, I got a phone call pretty late, and so I knew that individual was in crisis. So I sent a Zoom link, and this was at 9 o'clock at night, and here we go. We're working, um, going through and getting them out of that physical, emotional, traumatic reaction where
Hmm.
they were triggering. After you have gone through the process, what we do is Trisha will reach out to you. We'll do the post assessment. So you'll be able to see what your scores were or know what your scores were, excuse me, were before and what your scores were after going through the process. So when you see someone get like on the trauma screen, when you see someone scoring 60 and 70 on the PCL5, and after they've gone through the process, some schedule or not schedule, but may score 10 and below. A lot of the times it's 0. So if you see someone that scores 60 and then by the time they're done, they're at 0.
And you're saying 3-4 session. That's
So
incredible.
clinically, there's a huge significant change.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then they go out and they talk about the process. They go talk about a 22-0 within their group, be it the armed forces or first responders. And they say, hey, call this lady, she'll take care of you.
This is effective. This is incredible. Because we keep, it's I don't know if people realize, but we keep hearing these stories and people are in therapy for years,
Years.
years and didn't go anywhere. Or, they keep retelling the story, reliving their trauma. And it's not, I don't want to be generic about it, but
Right.
in many cases, it doesn't help. And so what do you do differently that it's so effective in very relatively short time?
So basically, we're getting them in a safe place before, a safe place after, and it's a lot of guided imagery. It's based off the neurological linguistic programming, and it is not EMDR. A lot of people think, for those that have been through EMDR, they just assume that it's EMDR. So EMDR falls under the NLP world, but the difference is that can take up to 18 months, and you're telling that story over and over and over and over. With us, you're not allowed to talk about the content. I can make you trigger without even mentioning the content. So that protects you, but that protects my peer coaches as well.
Hmm.
And then the average is 2 to 4 sessions. So
That's amazing.
looking at just, the trauma piece is more of that guided imagery, and even with the emotional healing. So the emotional healing is going to be for the negative emotions related to that trauma, like fear, terror, helplessness, guilt, survivor's guilt, going through and getting rid of those negative emotions as well.
Do you only work with adults?
No, we
No.
work with children as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Even
So
though they are not veterans.
but it's theirs. So the armed forces, first responders, their spouse and minor children living in the home, they
Yeah.
can't be divorced. They have to be living in the home, are covered. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, this is really incredible, and most people don't know you even exist, and yet you are so effective. We need to spread the word, that's for sure. Is there any memory that stand out for you, without naming names, story that touched your heart and you were able to turn around that you
Oh,
can recall?
there's a lot. One of them, which, and you can actually, if you go to our website, if you scroll down, you'll see Justin's testimony. So, um, and he's fine with me saying it just because he does it all the time, but it is on the website. So we were invited to Military Family Weekend, and that was in Florida, and that was in 2021, um, in December. So actually, he was there, and he had been in traditional therapy. His mother, and he, will make mention of this. His mother is in the counseling world. She's in the clinical world as well. But he had been to therapy after therapy after therapy, all different modalities. Well, he happened to be where we were presenting. He happened to be there, and Nick ended up working with him. And about 2 hours, he worked with him to get rid of that trauma. So one of the key things to know is he lives in Florida, close to Disney World, and every night they're putting off fireworks.
Oh.
And he would even say, or even talked about many times how that was his trigger,
Hmm.
that those fireworks set him off. Well, we were at Military Weekend and they were doing fireworks, but when Nick worked with him, he said, he called him and said, "Now what? What do I do now?" And Nick told him, said, "You're good." He's like, "I don't need to do nothing else." And he said, "No." He said, "You're good. It's gone." And he said, "How do I get into this? How do I do this? I want to pay it forward." And so now Justin is actually our president. He
Yeah.
got trained, and he has worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mission clients, and he's recently been made president. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Anyone that uh, reached out and then retrieved and didn't want to be helped? It's usually like we are going through so many turmoils emotionally that I can imagine that scenario.
It does. A lot of the times family will submit a contact information for their
Oh,
loved
okay.
one. Um, we will reach out to them, but they have to want to be able to go through the process. It's voluntary. We're not going to make anybody do that. And family, they want their loved one to get the healing that they deserve, that basically they're grasping for straws, and so they'll
Yeah.
submit that information. Some of them, when we reach out to them, we explain the process to them. Some of them decide they do want to go through the process, and then some decide no, that they don't feel that that's for them,
Mm.
which that's fine, and then sometimes later on they'll end up reaching back out for whatever reason, and then they decide to go through the process. But we do have some who say, hey, or even we may be doing a session with them and they just say, I would rather talk about it, which is very few and far between. But because they've done that for so many years, that's kind of ingrained in their brain that they have to talk about it. And so getting accustomed to something new or something different is very difficult at times.
Yeah, what you just said, it's kind of ringing in my brain that, when you live that trauma and then you live in repeating the story over and over and reliving it, it becomes your identity. It's really actually somebody's trying to help you to get rid of it, but it may be scary to get rid of your identity because it's a huge change because that was part of your life for so many years. So yeah, that's actually a good point. That's how to deal with that, right? Who am I now?
Right. And there's so many that, um, they're just not familiar with it. And once we explain to them, you're not going to talk about the content. Once they get in there and they start working with the coach, then they realize, okay, this is okay. It's I'm okay. I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. And getting them to that point is really important for us because that
Yeah.
way they realize not only are they going to be healed, but also that they're valuable. And every one of our peer coaches have been through the process and wanted to pay it forward,
Which
meaning they
speaks volume about
yes,
how it helped them. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Wow. I'm speechless. I seriously I admire this so much because I have met people who help train dogs to be emotional support for veterans. All these things are a helpful tool, but very often it doesn't help, doesn't turn over that problem that they are dealing with. It makes it easier, but it's not.
right.
What you do is really like rewiring the brain so it starts triggered differently.
Yes, yes. And technically by the time they're done, the neural pathways are really just redirecting and rewiring, and that's when that content can become neutral. Meaning, again, like I said earlier, the content didn't go away, but what happens when people are in those triggers, that means that traumatic event never did get processed.
Mhm.
And then with our brain being, the brain is just so remarkable that once you're going through the process, I've had so many people say it many, many times, hey, I'm getting a headache. That's very normal. I ended up having a headache when I went through the process. But some of them will say, I feel like just something just changed. And that's that shift that I'm talking about. And then let them know, no, you're good. You're okay. The brain is healing. That's what we want.
When you go through the process and let's say you have 2 3 sessions, when that moment comes that the light bulb lights up and it's turned around, what is usually the first reaction that people have?
What'd you do to me? That's the majority of the reactions that we get.
Wow.
What'd you do to me? Well, I promise you it's not hoodoo, it's not witchcraft, it's none of that. Like,
Not like
no,
hypnosis.
it's
Yeah.
not, no, 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 no. I've had many people say, is this kind of new for me to be doing it? I'm telling you, if it was anything that went against my faith, this woman wouldn't have nothing to do with it to begin with.
Yeah.
So, because I really am strong with my faith, and my faith has gotten me to where I am. My faith is what carried me When my husband passed away 2 years ago,
Mm.
it's really my faith. And so I let them know, I promise you, this lady wouldn't have nothing to do with any of that stuff. I let them.
You basically work with what's inside of the brain already, just
Right.
helping it to rewire differently so it doesn't trigger, and it doesn't, because all that stress is making us sick. It's not just physical pain, it's emotional pain is sometimes even worse because it's not visible.
Right.
And people around them don't realize that they may be in extreme emotional pain. And it's hard to, because nobody in normal world is trained to to deal with it and how to approach it and how to accommodate it. So it is so important to take care of it, and I really commend you. This is it's something that I didn't even know could be done until I had my own coaching training, and I have touched on and NLP, but not deep enough, and I'm still that's what I want to approach next, because it's so effective, and use it for this good. It's incredible, because I have heard people that have phobias of heights or spiders or whatever, like silly things compared to war trauma, of course,
Right.
but they are paralyzed their whole life because of that one thing that triggers them so badly, and it could be cured or turned over within one session, which is insane. And people don't even know. I mean, we really go, a lot of people reach for medication to calm themselves down, or God forbid some other substance, or they just live with it, or go for therapy and go for therapy for years, and it becomes like ritual almost. So this is a whole different way to approach this, and it's truly healing, and it's healing in the core of the problem, so it doesn't come back also, right?
Right. No, it does not come back. So what we do, whatever that event that they're stuck in, that big event, we're going to get that, but we also clear any other traumatic events. We go all the way back, get the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So let's say for those that are active duty, meaning armed forces and first responders. So if they experience a new trauma, especially with them being active,
Yeah.
all the old stuff is gone. That's been processed. If they experience another event that, with them being active and it is traumatic, all they have to do is call us and then we'll run them through the process.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, because if you are firefighter or EMT, you seeing emotionally hard things
Yeah.
possibly every day or very often, and some can be really hard to process, to come back home and kept seeing what you just saw somewhere on the road. Yeah, well, we need an ongoing support like that for these people, because it's incredible. It's unimaginable what they go through. I always had such a high respect for these people, and I told you I came from communist country, and neither military nor the police force was anything to respect, because it was all politicized,
Yeah.
corrupt, and very misusing their power to mistreat people. And it was, bribes, and it was really scary. If you were pulled over by police, it was usually, it meant something, and they can pull you for whatever reason. There's no there is no freedom to, like, you have to have a cause to pull someone over. So I remember when I first came to States in 2002, and this was like few weeks in the country, and I had this in me, that if police pulls you over, oh my God, you are in trouble, and you can they can take your license, they can ask for bribe, they can pull you for jail. It's, no cause. and
Mhm.
and I'm driving my friend's car, and I was, like I said, I was new in the country. I have to pay attention where I was going, and my cell phone rang, and I never like to answer my phone while I'm driving. So I pulled over into like side street and I took that phone call. And suddenly I see police turning, like he stopped past me, and my heart just sank, and I was like, oh my god, what have I done? And it's not my car, and I'm like, and I started running all these scenarios because of that trigger that I had from living in communism. And the police came and he knocked on the window, and I rolled down the window, and he goes, good afternoon, ma'am, are you okay? And my mouth dropped, because that would never happen where I lived. That somebody came genuinely concerned if you are okay. That was like, I was stunned. I had tears in my eyes. I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, thank you. No, I just pulled over because I wanted to take this phone. That's, I don't know if you can imagine living in this country your whole life, how fortunate we are with and with the attacks on everybody recently. It's been unbearable for me when I know what can be and it's not. This country has such a professional forces and well trained and incredibly caring. It's I have a hard time to take to take the attacks on them.
So we are glad you are here.
Yeah, me too. I'm too well. My country since got rid of communism, but it's been under communism for 40 years. It changes people. It changes people's values, moral values. It's very different. And then when you get the freedom, you really don't know what to do with it, because you have lived under command for so long that you don't even, because freedom comes with responsibility. Everybody wants to be free, but they don't want the responsibility, and it's I think that's the tough part for some people. They still want to take orders and just be able to blame it on somebody else if it doesn't work. It's much easier, and yeah. But I do. We came right after 9/11, and I didn't regret it. It's a very different world, and I just wish some people that live here and take it for granted could see how blessed we are being able to live here. Really, that's just me.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I am fortunate and blessed to be in the States, and it's my home.
Yeah, and you made it your life service to be of help of others, and that's just, if your faith is strong, you living it too. You living it with everything you do, and it's incredible. I'm so glad we met. It's just it's been really interesting to just learn that there are people like you that devote their whole life, no matter what, 24/7, to be there when somebody needs helping hand, and it's a big deal. And I hope that if it spoke to you who are listening to us today, maybe you can find it in your heart to see and support. You can buy merchandise, and that would help. Or you can, I believe you have donations on your site, don't you?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can go to the website, and there's a donate. You can do one time if you want to do monthly, and it's tax deductible. We are a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3), and anyone that does make a donation, you will get a letter that will be given to you for your tax purposes.
Yeah.
And
It
by
is this time of the year when we are more open to support good causes, and I have been very careful with who I support lately, because you learn that some organizations, the really the bare minimum goes to the cause, and everything else covers the administration stuff and lifestyles and whatever. This is not the case, as you can see when you see Pam. If you're watching on YouTube, this is a genuine human being that is leading this organization. There are people in this organization that are as devoted to the cause as she is, and it's I think it's a great idea to be helping, to be truly helping to turn it around, not just accommodate the pain, but really get rid of it.
To get rid of it, to heal it,
Yeah.
and I understand what you're saying about so many of the organizations, that maybe abuse or misuse, but I can 100% assure you, we pay our peer coaches to work with our armed forces and first responders. But the other piece to that is, you know, being available 24/7. Yes, it is taxing. Yes, I end up not having all of the quality time that I get to or need to have with my grandkids sometimes and my son and daughter-in-law, but it's a mission that I'm on. It's a purpose that I'm on right now, that, this is the journey God has me on, and I'm just going right with it. But I can assure you, um, when I say I am available or our peer coaches are available, we are available.
And so the same applies for the coaches, that they have to be available 24/7 if needed.
If we get an emergency, so they're not necessarily 24/7. I'm the only one that is 24/7. Um, there may be an emergency. Let's say if I have a couple emergencies that come in over the weekend, I'll reach out to Trisha and say, "Hey, I'm getting ready to do a pre-assessment. I've got another one. Can you go ahead and do this pre-assessment so we can get them assigned?" But our coaches do know that there are times, nights, weekends, that we may have someone that comes in on an emergency basis, and they're very open and receptive. They just tell me, "Pam, if you need me, just call me," which is the same thing that I say,
Yeah.
just call me. Yeah.
It's a very human feeling from everything we talked about. It's, we share some official statements that are important for the mission of this organization, but you can feel that this is meaningful to every single person that is involved, and for good reason. So is there anything that you would like to say to part ways with, that we didn't cover?
I guess really looking at the highlights is it is a peer program. We do not report to the VA. If you're a first responder, we do not report to your employer.
Oh, that's
It
right.
is 100% confidential. You do not talk about the content. There is no cost to our mission clients. Our mission clients, I mentioned it earlier, but are going to be the armed forces, first responders, spouses and minor children living in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Gold and green star families are covered at no cost. We do not bill insurance. We do not do EAP. It's at 100% at no cost to you. But to continue that mission, we have to have the funding. That's just bottom line. We have to have the funding to support the mission and for us to continue on.
So how can best people support you?
Supporting the mission, several ways. If they're wanting to do funding, or if they want to do a fundraiser and donate those proceeds, all they have to do is call me or email me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for me, I'm just going to say, remembering those who serve and protect us. We would not be where we are today without them serving and protecting and giving up so much, in addition to giving up their family to serve and protect us. So just, if you see a veteran, if you see active duty, if you see a first responder, thank them, because so many times they don't hear that. So many times they're getting more of the negative than they are of positive, and they so deserve to be told thank you. They so deserve to be taken care of, not just them, but their family as well.
Yeah, the thank you is the bare minimum we can do. That's for sure. Yeah.
We never know when. God's going to open those doors and connect us with people we just never know. And I do want to say, so you, just because I have my faith, you do not have to have a faith to, if you're a veteran or first responder. I don't
Right.
want you to feel that because I talk and I'm very open about my faith, that that is something that would, you know, that's not going to be put down your throat. I really want you to understand that
Hmm.
just because someone has a faith, yes, we serve them, but we serve those who may not have a faith. It's
Right.
not about anything about me. It's not about my peer coaches. It's about the armed force member, the first responder. It's about them. And we're going to meet you where you are. I wanted to make sure that people
Hmm.
understood that, because sometimes I've been asked, so do you have to have a faith to go through your program?
Right.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
No.
I'm vocal for where, with my faith, and just
And you
because
are being open about it, and that's your why. That's why that may be why you in service your whole life. That's what you believe. It's the right way to serve. And yeah, that's a good point, because I've heard some people that, oh well, I was gonna do that, but then I got turned off because they were all about this and that. It doesn't mean that you have to follow the same path. Yeah, it helps, but nobody's forcing you to believe in something that you don't, and you will be helped anyway.
yeah, I don't want someone that needs the healing to think, she talked a lot about her faith. I don't want anyone out there listening thinking, just because I talk about my faith, if you don't, there's no judgment here. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with me. It has
Right.
nothing to do with our peer coaches. All it has to do is serving our mission clients and giving them the healing that they deserve. And that's what we are about.
Pam, I want to ask you at the end.
Uh-huh.
I know you have gone through your list of achievements is incredible, and you have helped a lot of people, and it gotta be rewarding for you as well. But the last several years also gave you some personal pain and trauma to deal with, and grief and everything else. What is there in front of you that you are looking forward to achieve, and that you want to feel that you have achieved your mission, that you want to look back at the end of your life and feel that you didn't leave any stone unturned, you did what you were put on earth to do?
Oh, wow. Um, mm,
Maybe the little secret, your own personal wish. It doesn't have to be with work, it doesn't have to be with anything else, just in you personally that feels important.
I think well, for me, it's going to be knowing that I have absolutely done everything that I was supposed to do, um, that I felt God wanted me to do. Uh, for me, that's probably one of the bigs, or not, I don't want to say probably. That's one of the big factors for me, is knowing at the end I can look back and say, I missed the boat sometimes. I did. I was, because nobody's perfect,
Yeah.
but at least within my heart, I know I attempted and tried to do everything that was set out for me to do within my ministry, or within, the mission and purpose of serving and protecting others.
So, any big goal that is in the back of your mind that you want to achieve?
The
I mean, this
big,
is big enough. Don't take it.
um, the big go is, so in relation to 22-0, is getting the word out there in the mass to all of our armed forces and first responders across the U.S. That's, one of the big goals, so that they can get the healing that they deserve, and having the funding to continue. I mean, if you don't have the funding, you don't continue. That's just
Yeah.
the way it is. Personally, after my husband passed away, my son um, started talking to me about moving next to him, and it's 23 minutes, and I said, "No, son, I'm good," because that was my when I moved there, I said, this is the last time I'm moving. Never say never.
Yeah. Yeah.
But basically, he just kept saying, Mama, I promised him I would take care of you. And I said, well, you would have done that anyways. And he said, yeah, but if something happens, I would feel secure if you were next to me. So there was some property that came up and he got it and he called and he said, Mama, I have the place and it's right next to me. So he got the property and put a home here, and now I live next to him. So on that personal side is making sure that I continue to be that example, to be that light, not just for my son, but my amazing daughter-in-law. She's just wonderful.
Mm.
My grandkids, I want them all to know that big goal is that no matter what, Nana and or mom is always there, um, but that she loves you unconditionally.
Yeah.
And at the end, for them to know and feel that, then I've achieved everything.
I think you already do, because the kids are very susceptible to see what person does instead of what person just trying to say or teach. And you are living example how to live life.
Thank you. I try.
This has been incredible. I hope our listeners are moved by this mission. I really think this is very, very unusual way and very effective way to help. And I definitely would do everything in my power to spread the word, not only to people that need your help, but also to people that may have the resources to support it. And I definitely hope that you find it in your heart to support something like that. And also mentioning, we had Lisa Regina on a podcast just recently, and she went through own personal trauma, and you are actually on the board with the A Right to Heal that she started, which helped her personally, and then she started helping many others who deal with any emotional trauma, and writing really helps to process that. And
Yes.
so, thanks to her, I met you because you just happened to be kind enough to comment on the post that I was making about her podcast. And I remember she mentioned you. So, that's how you never know what the door opens when you engage with somebody, even when you don't know the purpose yet, but it's always open a new door and new possibilities. So I would encourage everyone, even if you feel like your life has no purpose and you don't know what to do next, maybe start with serving others, and it will take away from your own insecurities. When you pour your love and yourself into other people, it really helps to heal you as well. I strongly believe that this works. It worked for me, and you are the living example how it works in life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Pam, thank you so much for being here today. I hope everyone will listen and take some action based on this. I will post all the links to your website in the show notes. And if anybody wants to reach to Pamela directly, there'll be contact information there. And please encourage, if you know somebody in your circle that may need this kind of help, tell them about it. That's the least you can do. Tell them about it. Let them decide if this is the right way for them, and just make them aware that services like this exist and it could be very effective help for them.
Thank
And
you for
since
having me.
we have a veteran Dan just passed us, I think this is the most appropriate to bring awareness of this service and promote people like you. That we need more like Dr. Pamela Arnell in the world. That's for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. And some more of Lisa's. Lisa and I are really close. She has definitely been there, and not just with my son and family, but Lisa is family, and she's been there on this grief journey. And there's times I'll say, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
So We're not only am I serving on our board, but we have become family.
I told her when we had our podcast that I have a feeling whoever cross her circle and it's good person that they never leave. It's just like
Oh,
she's collecting these uh resonating souls around her, and it's incredible, and I'm really grateful that through her I met you, and now look at this is growing in unexpected ways. I believe that we will find ways to work together, and I want to be involved somehow. I don't know how yet, but I want to be part of this because I truly believe that if we are fortunate to have a roof over our head and good health, we owe it to others to be of service and help others to have the bare minimum at least and be healed of their trauma. It's possible.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. And thank you so much for having me and let me share my own journey and share about the mission of 220.
absolutely. Thank you so much. And please, if you were moved by Pam's story and what she does, reach out. Don't leave things unresolved.
Absolutely.